Mansfield are going to go on to be stars of the Grand Prix world. And this man, Neil Mackenzie, well, he's been so brilliant in Britain and on the Grand Prix scene in the 250 class. He's going to move on to the 500cc class very soon, but he'll want to be impressive as he can in the 250 class before he leaves the Silverstone Armstrong team and moves on to the 500s. Next to him, the man that I think has a star future in the 250cc class, that's Darren Dixon, a young man sponsored for this meeting by Jewson's from Hythe down in Kent. As I say, a former sidecar racer. His father was a former sidecar racer, and Darren Dixon, number 28, has moved on. Stop engine, says the sign. This will be a push start. There, Gary Knoll, you can see his name on the back. Number 15, Gary Knoll, definitely a man to watch for. Number 5, well, that's Peter Hubbard, and he's a talented rider too. Next to him, number 4, distinctive blue and white crossed helmet of Donny McLeod, 30 years of age, but a star rider. I saw one a lot ago, and it was Donny McLeod and Ian Newton. Ian Newton, the man who has been loaned the Silverstone Armstrong, an Armstrong for some of the season. It's Ian Newton who leads the charge, and that looks like Rob Orme there in second place. And in fact, it's Kevin Mitchell there. My apologies. Oh, and so close. 3 riders close together, almost made contact. And it's Ian Newton in the lead. Steve Chambers there in second place. Nigel Bosworth through to second place. My apologies. Bosworth then challenging for the lead with Ian Newton. And it's Bosworth who goes through to snatch the lead. And Donny McLeod, who was up there in third place, must have wondered what was going on as Bosworth and Ian Newton diced it out. Bosworth the leader, Nigel Bosworth from Stoke Golding, very close to the Mallory Box circuit up in the Midlands. And Donny McLeod is through to second place. Ian Newton is pushed back to third position. And Nigel Bosworth, as I said earlier, the sensation of the season really in the 250 class. He was a good rider but before the season started, but now he's an absolute star.
Yes, and Neil Mackenzie down in 10th place. He's got a very lousy start on the 250 Armstrong, so he's got a lot of work to do with McLeod already up into second place.
So the leader's going through for the first time. Nigel Bosworth in the lead, Donny McLeod in second place, Ian Newton there in third position. 7 laps to go for the leaders. And Donny McLeod there out in front. A fine start though for Nigel Bosworth. Well, certainly doing the business here. A great performance.
Yes, superb riding from Bosworth. Really making great form on this 250 Yamaha, being chased and overhauled now by the 250 Armstrong. That's the Reed valve engine in front, the disc valve behind, the Armstrong, the fully fledged Grand Prix machine, the Yamaha, a bike that anybody can buy. Both 2-cylinder, 2-strokes.
Bosworth under pressure, mounting pressure from Donny McLeod. McLeod, 30 years of age. Nigel Bosworth, somewhat younger, he's 24. And Bosworth on the privately owned 250 machine. McLeod on the factory Silver Armstrong, and McLeod is going to go past a quicker motorcycle, Peter.
Yes, very, very well judged. McLeod just used the slipstream and a little bit of extra speed to duck past as they approach the braking area. Now he takes the lead. It'll be very, very hard for Bosworth to get back on terms. And we can see that Mackenzie is up into third place, as that's the leader, number 4, Donny McLeod. That's the Silverstone Armstrong's now in first and third places.
McLeod, the race leader. Nigel Bosworth, the privateer, in second spot. Third is his teammate Neil Mackenzie. In fourth spot is number 7, Rob Orme, the Derbyshire rider, sponsored by West Transport. In fifth spot is number 25, Ian Newton. Sixth is number 1, Kevin Mitchell. And seventh, well, we lost that track of who was in seventh place. In fact, it was Gary Cowan, the Ulsterman. There, the pace of the 250, the countryside there, the hedges and the bushes flashing past as McLeod touching up something like 140 miles an hour, heads Nigel Bosworth.
That's the ultralight 90 kilogram space age technology carbon fibre Armstrong out in front. And very, very sadly, this may be the last time we see the work Silverstone Armstrongs on television. Their future is uncertain for next season, with both McLeod and Mackenzie leaving the team for other rides.
Well, that would be sad, but of course there's lots of really talented British boys that would benefit from the outing as McLeod goes through, completing another lap. Bosworth tucked in behind him. Mackenzie there in third place, still Rob Orme in fourth spot. There is Rob Orme, the right leathers with the white stripe. Down, and look at that scrap behind it, really is ding-dong further down the field. Just over half a second the gap between Don McLeod, the man from north of the border, and the British rival Nigel Bosworth, and Bosworth rapidly being overhauled by Neil Mackenzie.
And these may only be 250s, but that is still 140 mile an hour action you're watching as McLeod scrapes his knee on the road, the rubber covering of their knee pads scraping the tarmac at 140 mile an hour, ripping layers of rubber off those special knee pads which are tacked onto the outside of the leathers.
And there is the scrap out in front. And Bosworth is being towed along as Mackenzie moves through into second place, and in fact moves alongside and slots through neatly, if you like, to take the lead from his teammate. Mackenzie leads from McLeod, but Bosworth is closer. Nigel Bosworth is much, much closer. Keppel Engineering have promised to help Nigel Bosworth go European Championship racing next year. Peter Brown and his dash trucks have also come in with some money, and so couture factors. So really Nigel Bosworth deserves and recognises the help that he's getting, and he really is putting a fine performance up here. Bosworth hanging on to the two Silverstones Armstrong.
Yes, it's a great performance from a machine that doesn't have the handling or performance in theory of the Grand Prix points winners in front. And Mackenzie trying to stretch his advantage over McLeod now. These guys may be teammates, but of course McLeod, who's now in second place, has something to prove, because Mackenzie's being sought by the 500 Grand Prix teams. And although McLeod has an offer to ride 250, for sure he's a little bit jealous of all the attention that Mackenzie's getting. These bikes...
McLeod first and second. There is Bosworth just trailing a little bit, but no disgrace at all for Nigel Bosworth, and the yellow flag going out into again, that somebody's touring ahead of them, somebody touring back to the paddock, and they're coming around now to complete their fifth lap. They're coming through the chicane, 5 laps completed, 3 more laps to go. Mackenzie, McLeod, Bosworth.
And it may be now that McLeod will try and sit on Mackenzie's tail and seek a weak point in Mackenzie's riding line. Just watch where his teammate is going.
Rob Orme still there in fourth place, closing the gap a little bit on Nigel Bosworth. Behind him is 15, that's Gary Knoll. Then number 1, Kevin Mitchell. Over 2 seconds, the gap between these two Silverstone Armstrong men. The Flying Scotsman, Neil Mackenzie, Johnny McLeod, Neil Mackenzie, who hit the headlines with his Pro-Am victories. Of course, he had a victory on the World of Sport in the Pro-Am World Cup race. In those days, he was fairly wild, Peter, but my word, hasn't he calmed down and smoothed out since then?
Yes, both these men here, absolutely fabulously smooth riders, and this is very important on the 250. They don't have a surplus of power, so you've got to keep tucked in behind the machine, behind the fairing, to cut down the wind resistance at all times and not slide the tyres too much.
And there's the gap. You can see the gap now between first and second and third place men. And just coming into picture any second now will be the battle for fourth and fifth place. There you can see them. There's the leaders going through. First and second. That's Nigel Bosworth in third place. And here comes the scrap behind. And Gary Knoll has got ahead of Rob Orme. So Gary with British Airways down from Hanworth in Middlesex is through to 4th place, and he's chasing Nigel Bosworth. That's 6 laps completed, 2 more laps to go. The end of the 6th lap. Mackenzie in the lead, McLeod behind him, then in 3rd place Nigel Bosworth, 4th is Gary Knoll, 5th Rob Orme, 5th Kevin Mitchell. There's the gap, you can see it. There is Gary Knoll in the white leather storming through, Rob Orme behind him. Kevin Mitchell is in 6th place, and up now is Steve Chambers into 7th spot, just ahead of Darren Dixon. So that's Rob Orme. And Rob Orme, number 7, just behind Gary Knoll, battling for 4th and 5th positions. That's the gap between Gary Knoll and Rob Orme. And there we can see the front 5 men all together in the picture. Mackenzie holding off McLeod. Well, Peter, you could be right. Maybe McLeod is going to go for a last lap charge. But if he is, this lap that's coming up now is the one he's got to do it on. 7 laps completed now by the leader. 1 more lap to go.
And if he is going to make a last lap effort, I think it will be coming into the last chicane. When we first saw Mackenzie pass McLeod, McLeod did almost repass him going onto the chicane on the last lap.
Well, there's a mobile chicane ahead of Mackenzie and McLeod, a slow man out on the circuit. And let's see who that is. That's number 12, Steve Cook. Well, Steve Cook being given the treatment by Mackenzie and McLeod as they go through on this final circuit.
And these next few 100 yards absolutely critical to the race, because McLeod has to be right on Mackenzie's tail to gain the slipstream going into the last sweeping straight.
Well, maybe Mackenzie was falling because he's just wound up the wick. He thought there may be a challenge. That, in fact, is not the leader. That's Nigel Bosworth there in 3rd place, just easing his way past Steve Cook. And just coming into the picture now, the bottom left-hand screen, there are the leaders.
And they've gone out of the picture there, the 2 men, and it's still Mackenzie in the lead.
And coming into the chicane for the final time, it's going to be now or never from McLeod. Mackenzie's going to hang on. Mackenzie's going to win. McLeod is going to take 2nd place. There is the victory margin. There is the scrap for 3rd place. Bosworth, Nigel Bosworth, holds off Gary Knoll. And there is Rob Orme in 5th place. So a fine victory there for Neil Mackenzie. Donny McLeod in 2nd place. And Nigel Bosworth in 3rd spot. Well, tremendous performance there from the 2 Scotsmen. Mackenzie going so well.
And I think Mackenzie had a little bit in hand. Perhaps these 2 have raced now so often that Ormo McLeod may have had ideas of a last lap effort. Mackenzie knew what was going through his mind and knew that in the middle of the last lap he had to put in the extra effort.
Well, all credit to Nigel Bosworth too. An excellent performance in 3rd place. So Nigel Bosworth 3rd behind the 2 Silverstone Armstrong people. Gary Knoll in 4th place and Rob Orme in 5th spot.
Well done on that win. In fact, you made a bad start, didn't you?
Yeah, I broke my leg at the start of the season and I have a bit of a problem pushing. Apart from that, Donny always makes a good start, and there's lots of riders in between, so once I get past the riders, it's not so much of a problem catching Donny, but it's getting past the slow riders.
You had a nice moment, of course, when you went past him, and I think we can show that to you, because it was a nice moment for you.
Yeah, I always enjoy passing Donny.
There it is. Go on, talk us through it.
Yeah, well, I caught Donny on the fast back straight, and I know I'm pretty good breaking into that chicane, so I thought I could probably slipstream him up there and outbrake him into the chicane, and that's the way it worked out. It worked out perfect.
You, of course, are being hailed as the new sort of wonder boy, if you like, of British motorcycling. How do you react to all this publicity and fame?
Well, my feet are firmly on the ground, and yeah, it's great. I mean, this is my ambition. I've wanted to be one of the best road racers in the country, and I'm getting there slowly. It's been a long uphill task, but I'm slowly getting there.
Although this is a 250 race, people are saying that you are the man to look out for at Grand Prix level.
Yeah, I rode a 500 for the Skull Bandit Suzuki team for the last 3 Grand Prix, And I finished well up in the points at each Grand Prix, and I also qualified third in Misano in Italy. So
it's all going well.
Yeah, everything's going really well, and things are looking good for next year. I should have a factory 500, which is excellent.
Well, congratulations on the win here in the 250s. Are you going to have a sip of that in a moment?
I think I'll save it for the mechanics because they've done a good job today.
No, I don't think you dare drink that, do you? Well done, Neil. Thanks
Cheers,
very much.
Thanks.
So the field are finally ready for the start of this 500cc Honda V Formula 500 Cup race. And one of the men there in the middle of your picture is Keith Nichols. Well, Keith injured himself at Alton Park, and he'll be hopping. You can see he's going to hop all over the track. The others are going to sprint, and Keith Nichols, well, he's hopping on one leg as fast as he can. A lot of pain. The engines fire up on the electric starter, and away they go. And it's Dave Leach, bike number 6, who leads the field through. Difficult to identify these people. The bikes very, very similar, but it looked as though poor old Keith Nichols had made a diabolical start, and not surprising. Number 5, who we saw hopping on one foot. There is Dave Leach out in front. Number 15, that's behind him. That's Steve Bonham. Well, ITV Sport viewers will remember Steve Bonham crashing in spectacular fashion at Mallory Park earlier in the year in exactly this same race. But Steve Bonham going well at the moment in second place behind Dave Leach. And Steve Bonham storming up, reeling in the man from Halifax. And it's getting quite desperate out there. These men are putting the bike to their absolute limit, and it's Leach the leader with Steve Bonham in second place. A whole bunch of them have now pulled well away from the rest of the field. Well, considering this was a Le Mans start, they are very, very close together. Still Leach out in front, and Bonham has lost a position. He's lost a place to Ian Young from up in the northeast. Geordie Ian Young is in second place, so it's Leach, Ian Young and Steve Bonham, and somebody going right across the chicane. I don't know who that was. It looked a bit like Chris Brennick there, who had the big problem. Well, Peter, Chris Brennick trying an unusual shot there at the chicane.
Yes, presumably he ran out of brakes coming into the chicane and thought that straight on was better than try and tip the bike in when he's going far too fast.
And Dave Leach, careful on the brakes there, but still out in front on this, the second lap of an 8-lap battle. Steve Bonham has pushed himself back into second place. Bike number 15, Ian Young, is there in third spot. And Bonham is certainly quicker on sections of this Thruxton circuit than Dave Leach out in front. Steve Bonham, 22 years of age, from Berkshire. And Steve Bonham, who's been doing so well on these bikes, and Bonham goes round the outside, absolutely superb, but Leach has got the better line than tried to line. Well, there's a brave move there by Steve Bonham.
Yes, he was much quicker at that section, trying to go around the outside, but it's a long way round the outside of that fast corner, and Leach held a tighter line and was able to get away from him a little bit.
And there's some chopping and changing around out in front, and the 3 leaders side by side, and Bonham has got the slight advantage. No, he's not, and it's Ian Young who goes through on bike number 8, and Mark Kilner chops them all, and it's Mark Kilner, the new leader. Ian Young there in second place, Dave Leach on the outside, and he's going to be chopped out on the chicane, and he drops back to 5th spot. And Jeff Johnson, I think, so in third place.
He's one of the stars of this class.
So Jeff Johnson, a very experienced man, there in third position behind Mark Kilner and Ian Young. Jeff Johnson, 2 times Isle of Man TT winner, one of the elder statesmen, as it were, of this competition. A lot of young British hopefuls taking part, and Jeff Johnson there, all being given the brake test there by Mark Kilner, who's been pushed back into second place by Ian Young. Ian Young, number 8, out in front. Number 3, Mark Kilner in second spot. 17, that's Jeff Johnson in third place.
But Jeff Johnson's the experienced man, and as we watch the 2 younger leaders battle tooth and nail up front, I think we'll see Johnson just weighing things up and picking the right place to pass.
And Jeff Johnson decided that perhaps that was a place to pass, but found that it wasn't. And it is Ian Young, sponsored by Wilson and Young Motorcycles from up there in the northeast, and Mark Kilner goes very, very wide, and Jeff Johnson as you were saying, Peter, used all his experience and skill. Mark Kilner went very, very wide indeed, and he paid the penalty.
You see, all these bikes are absolutely identical, so anyone who makes a slight mistake has no chance of just twisting the throttle and regaining lost ground. You've got to use the motorcycle to its very best advantage.
Well, this is shades of the Pro-Am series. Oh, and Ian Young there, almost as if he'd stopped. Jeff Johnson went one side of him, Mark Kilner went the others on the braking, coming into the chicane. Another lap completed. And it's Jeff Johnson, the new race leader from Mark Kilner. 20-year-old Mark Kilner from Bolton there in second spot. 17, Jeff Johnson. 33 years of age, Jeff. As I say, he's been riding an awful long time. All sorts of bikes Jeff Johnson's been good at. Well, say, Peter, this is shades of the Pro-Am, isn't it?
It really is, but of course we've now got a man of Johnson's experience out in front, and it'll be interesting to see if Kilner does the wise thing, which at this point would be just to follow Johnson and watch exactly what he does, because now Johnson's starting to get away, and Kilner mustn't get too desperate. There's no good rushing in on the brakes and running wide into corners. He's got to follow Johnson and try and pick up the quick line.
Through Cobb, they'll be peeling off into Seagrave at the moment. It's a long, long time since we had television cameras at a motorcycle race meeting at Thruxton Park, and what a superb venue for television motorcycling it's proving to be this afternoon. Jeff Johnson out in front. Kilner and Young side by side. That looks like Dave Leach back there in 5th position. In 4th spot at the moment is, well, it was Dave Leach. We'll have to try and pick up who the new 4th man is as went through. There's Jeff Johnson, and as you said, Peter, he's now really just opening the wick and winding on the power. And when you consider that these bikes are virtually identical on performance, Johnson is pulling away on riding skill and smoothness.
That's it. That's the key word, smoothness on these motorcycles, because although they are 500cc bikes, they're not the 125 brake horsepower Grand Prix machines. These are production bikes, as you can ride on the road, with a top speed of only, we're talking about sort of 115 miles an hour, 120 miles an hour, and with road tyres, you cannot afford to go sliding into the corner with everything locked up and sliding this way and that. You'll just lose the power, lose the speed, and Johnson very conservative, not getting the bike out of shape very badly, just riding very, very smoothly and getting away from the rest of the field.
And Johnson, there is the gap you can see between him and that bunch behind, and right in the front of that bunch now, I don't know whether he's through to second place, but Phil Arms, number 31, moving up. Phil Arms, a former Navy man. His mother and father, key figures in motorcycle racing in Britain, but Phil Arms doing his own flag waving at the moment. Jeff Johnson out in front. There's Jeff Johnson, number 17, and he's now got a long, long lead over the rest of the field. There is the battle behind, and as I say, I think Phil Arms is the man who's now pulled through to be at the front of that group. That's number 31. In fact, it's not Phil Arms. I think it's Kilner and Ian Young still having a bit of a battle there behind. There's Jeff Johnson going into the chicane, and look at this 5-man dice, and they're getting in each other's way, and somebody right off the track there. Oh, and they're very, very looking to get away with it. There's 31, Phil Arms going through in 4th position. So it's Mark Kilner and Ian Young still battling away for second place, but they were getting in each other's way there, Peter.
They certainly were, and as you said, because Phil Arms made a bit of a mess of it, trying very hard to get past a few guys going into that corner, ended up running across the cement dust which is laid on the circuit to cover up the oil, and perhaps a little lucky to stay on at that point.
Well, it's Kevin Maudsley, number 4, the man we were talking about, who had his big break on the Silverstone Armstrong machines early in the year, one of Britain's finest young road racers. Things didn't quite work out for Kevin, but he's proving his worth here. He's a Blackpool lad, 22 years of age now, living down at Rugeley in Staffordshire, and he's had some good rides in the series. He didn't start competing in the Honda Championship until back in June, and here in this Cup race he's trying to and in fact he's reeling back Jeff Johnson. We see the gap between Johnson and Kevin Maudsley, and it's definitely being reeled in. Maudsley is there in second place, and Johnson is losing ground. Now, is there something the matter with that motorcycle, Peter?
I suggest there's nothing wrong with Johnson's motorcycle, but he's going as fast as he can, and it's just a case that Maudsley at this moment is a little bit quicker and smoother, but that won't help him at all, having another rider try and dive up the inside. I think Maudsley's doing the work. He's proving that he can ride this bike as smoothly, if not better, than Johnson, and it's just closing in on him on talent alone.
And in fact, it looks like Dave Leach there, who was in second place. Yes, it's Dave Leach, the early leader. Kevin Maudsley, number 4, in second place, chasing Jeff Johnson. Dave Leach there with the black and white leathers. Then it's Ian Young pushed back.
And of course, psychologically, it is always a little bit better to be chasing a man than in front, because Maudsley has the man in front and he can try and steal a yard on him at every turn, and he's certainly done that most successfully. Johnson did make a mistake coming into this last set of corners.
6 laps gone. They're on their 7th of 8 laps. This is the penultimate lap, and Kevin Maudsley is level pegging with Jeff Johnson, and the young Blackpool-born rider snapping at the heels of the North Yorkshire character. There's the field storming through, and that is the gap out front, and Jeff Johnson is holding him off, and Kevin Maudsley right on his rear tyre and pulling out of the slipstream, chin on the tank, and Maudsley going round the outside, and Johnson pushed back to second place. A bit of cement dust kicked up there from the rear tyre of Johnson as he just slides in behind Maudsley. Johnson going to the inside line as they come to the corner, and Johnson back in front, but Maudsley is a fighter. There is Maudsley, true to type. He just hung on bravely on what wasn't the right racing line, and they're almost leaning on each other as they come into the chicane, and they'll be starting their 8th and final lap with Dave Leach there in 3rd place and Ian Young, number 8, in 4th position. And Kevin Maudsley waves a foot to indicate that he's seen the board. This is the last lap. It's now or never for Jeff Johnson and Dave Leach, the 2 men behind, and Leach is closing on them now. Ian Young in 4th position.
Yes, it really has been a great ride from Maudsley, and there doesn't seem to be anything Johnson can do about it. Of course, you could be right, Chris. Johnson might have a problem with his machine. I suspect not. Maudsley just riding this 500 Honda absolutely brilliantly.
Well, Kevin Maudsley, when he was a club rider, broke the lap records here on his Suzuki Gamma in the 250 class, and on a Terry Beckett tuned the machine in the 350 class. So Kevin Maudsley knows all about going quickly at Thruxton, but that was in club level, and this is a slightly different kettle of fish. Kevin Maudsley, number 4, the race leader, 22 years of age. Jeff Johnson behind, 33-year-old Yorkshireman, and behind him is 23-year-old Dave Leach, and Jeff Johnson looks over his shoulder to see Leach is there. It's definitely between these 3, and Leach is ready to have a go for second place, and really Jeff had got no answer there. I think there must be something the matter with that motorcycle, Peter.
Yes, and Leach is very, very quick into the corner. Jeff will try and come back at him somewhere in this section, but he can't do it.
It's the sprint then to the line through the chicane for the final time. The checkered flag is ready. It's going to be Kevin Maudsley who wins this one. Dave Leach is sprinting there, can't do it. Kevin Maudsley, the winner, acknowledges the cheers of the crowd. In second place, Dave Leach, and in 3rd spot, Jeff Johnson.
Well, you can't say that wasn't eventful, can you? Let's just confirm the result of that 500 Cup race then. Kevin Maudsley, formerly of Blackpool, now of Rugeley and Staffordshire, the winner. Dave Leach, 2nd. And Jeff Johnson, who was in 1st place early on, has to be satisfied with 3rd.
Congratulations on a fine win. Eventful race?
Yeah, I didn't get the start I anticipated. It wouldn't fire up on the line for some reason, and I was just looking at the controls why it wasn't going. I was going to bump it because everybody sort of gone. You know, I was going to try and push start it, and it's fired up, and I was last away. But I thought if I thought I might win, but well, top 5. But I was going for the win. I always do go for the wins.
What happened? I mean, Jeff Johnson led for a long while, and then suddenly you came through.
Well, I seem to be, I don't know if it was taking, well, I was probably just taking risks and chances, really. I was just passing everybody wherever there was an opportunity. If there was a gap that I thought I could get through, I was going for it, and luckily it paid off. I nearly ran into a couple of people, but other than that, it weren't too bad, and Jeff was going really well. It took me a couple of laps to catch him up, and I think once I passed him, I think he eased up a bit, but yeah, it was a good race. I enjoyed it. It's
a nice moment for you, because I know you've had 1 or 2 ups and downs this season, haven't you?
Yeah, I've had me runs of bad luck and what have you, and I think this is my worst season I've had this since I started racing. I've had a lot of bad luck and a lot of crashes, And really, this VF500 that I'm riding now, it's the only ride I've got at the moment. I'm looking for something bigger, like a 750 to ride for next year. But the 500 keeps me handing. You've got to do it. If you lose practice, you just get a bit worse than what you were before.
Kevin, well done. Nice win. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
Is Neil Mackenzie on the far side of the grid. Steve Henshaw there. Neil Robinson will be pulling down the visors. They've had the 30 seconds board, and there's a bit of a panic there.
And there seems totally disagreement as to whether it's a clutch start or a push start. The guys, some of them have stopped their engine. They're now trying to restart them. There's no one seems to know quite what to do.
Definitely chaos and confusion on the grid, and it looks as though it is going to be a clutch start. Richard Scott firing up that Honda on the background. Number 16 there is Keith Ewan with the STC Suzuki.
The difference being, of course, Grand Prix started with dead engines pushed, but now this is a clutch start with the engine running and the bottom gear engaged.
So Burnett number 9, Robinson number 7, Mackenzie number 2 on the front row of the grid. Kenny Irons as well, he won't want to be out of the reckoning. And Irons who almost jumped the start there, and away goes the field, and it's Kenny Irons who leads. Kenny Irons, the young man from Luton, and Mark Phillips is tucked in there behind him. Kenny Irons in the lead, Mark Phillips in second place. Roger Burnett goes through into third spot.
And of course, Mackenzie's never clutch started this 500 Suzuki, so he's back in about 5th or 6th position.
And Burnett pushed his way through into second place, lost it almost for a moment to Mark Phillips, but he's back again in second place. So it's Burnett in second spot behind Kenny Irons, and the view looking down on the pack as they sweep through the curves, the fast sweeps of this Thruxton circuit, and there's the gap between Ken Irons, and they sweep down that back straight. You can see the pace of the motorcycles, something like 160 miles an hour for these 500s. Kenny Irons in the lead, Roger Burnett in second place. And look at Roger Burnett reeling in Kenny Irons, and Roger Burnett looking for the inside line, and there is the view that Roger Burnett sees tucked in behind the fairing, looking for one side, and they're side by side. And can Burnett do it? Yes, he can. Burnett through to take the lead on the opening lap. Kenny Irons, number 8, right in behind him. Burnett the leader, Kenny Irons, then Neil Robinson, then Roger Marshall, then Neil Mackenzie. Burnett, number 9, number 8 is Kenny Irons, and Burnett already beginning to open the lead a little bit. This is an 8th lap race, and really Mackenzie's got to do something, and do something quick if he's going to catch Roger Burnett. Burnett using the RS engine, not the factory NS engine in this bank.
Yes, they had a shortage of spare parts for the factory engine, which has a little bit more power, so they've had to go for the less powerful machine, not realising that Mackenzie, which is the big fight for these guys, not realising that Mackenzie would be in the race. They went for the less powerful engine, but now Burnett has the advantage. He's got away, and Mackenzie's got a lot to do to catch up. He's already up into 6th gear now at about 155, 160 miles an hour, with the bike laid over and the suspension working overtime as it tries to keep the tyres on the road as they run across the bumps.
Burnett, Kenny Irons, Roger Marshall. Then it's Neil Robinson, and still Neil Mackenzie back in 5th place. Well, Mackenzie ran the Suzukis at Donington Park on Wednesday, so we had lots of laps on the Suzuki. And this man, Roger Burnett, who many people feel is going to go on to bigger and better things, through the chicane for the second time. Kenny Irons behind. Then Roger Marshall. The view from the camera on the bike. Burnett leads. Kenny Irons riding absolutely superbly, tucked in behind Roger Burnett, certainly not being shaken off. And Kenny Irons, I'm sure, has got all sorts of plans of what he would like to do at some later stage in this race, not being shaken off by Burnett. There is Burnett, and right with him is Kenny Irons.
And at this point, Burnett changes up into 3rd gear, already doing over 100 miles an hour with the bike laid right on its side, the wheels sliding as it accelerates very quickly up through 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, increasing speed all the time up to the top speed, which is around 160 miles an hour.
And you can see the pace of those motorcycles as the countryside just flashes past them as they hurtle down one of the few straights that exist on this high-speed Thruxton sweepery. Burnett the race leader. Behind him, Kenny Irons, and Roger Marshall's decided that he wants to join in on the fun. Keep an eye on Roger Marshall. There he is in third place. The veteran member of the Rothmans Honda squad, Roger Marshall, well, he improves like wine with age. And Roger Marshall there in third place. He's closing on Kenny Irons. And if you told Roger Marshall that Roger Bennett was a better rider than him, well, he'd do more than give you a hard stare, Peter.
He certainly would. Of course, Marshall wants to prove that he's still as good or better rider than Burnett, and he's capable of doing it on his day.
Mackenzie up into fourth place now. 3 laps completed in this 8-lap battle. Burnett, Roger Bennett out in front. And look at Marshall all over Kenny Irons. He knows he can't afford to let Roger Bennett get any further away, but Kenny Irons is going to be a difficult man to pass.
Yes, and Irons riding absolutely superbly on what is not as good a machine as the Hondas either side of him.
Kenny Irons from Luton, Roger Marshall from Rugby in Lincolnshire, a near neighbour, a close friend of Roger Bennett, but there's no friendship, no comradeship, and very little team spirit between Marshall and Burnett when they're on the racetrack. Both men want to win. They're sent out on bikes capable of winning, and both men are told that if they can win, well, they should. Burnett, the race leader, number 9. And Keith Ewan on the SDC Suzuki into the pits. His race is over. And Marshall looking for a way through, but Irons still holds him off, and Marshall almost made contact there with Kenny Irons.
Yes, that wasn't dirty riding at all. There's just a very fast sweeping curve with several possible lines around there, and the two of them disagreed about which part of tarmac. And Irons goes back inside. Incredible piece of riding. Very, very late on the brakes. The front wheel almost losing grip and sliding sideways. And Mackenzie also coming into the picture in 4th place.
Well, tremendous performance there by Kenny Irons. He'd lost second spot, and many other riders would have settled it, decided all about it. But Marshall's come back at him again, and they're absolutely side by side, and it's Marshall with a slight advantage, but Kenny Irons is quite prepared to try and ride round the outside. Well, Kenny Irons broke his pelvis at the Dutch TT in June. He bounced back after just a few weeks, and he really is proving a thorn in the side to these battery men. Kenny Irons pushed back to 3rd place. There is Burnett at over 160 miles an hour, flat out, in top gear, down the back straight, leaning over hard right. So at the end of lap 4, the halfway stage in this race, it's Burnett the leader, then Roger Marshall in 2nd place, Kenny Irons is 3rd, then Neil Mackenzie, then Neil Robinson. In 6th spot is Richard Scott, and in 7th position Mark Phillips. Behind Mark Phillips is Trevor Nation. There is Richard Scott on the Honda, and back now with Roger Burnett, the race leader. The scenery just flashing past. This is the pace, this is how it is. And Burnett, another lap completed, still out in front, and nobody's going to catch him, I don't think. Behind Marshall, Kenny Irons. Behind Kenny Irons is Neil Mackenzie, while Mackenzie's left it late for a charge.
Yes, he doesn't want to make any mistakes, not being desperate, but he has left it rather late to catch Burnett, but it's quite possible he can pass the 2 men in front. His bike is better than Irons, certainly they're both Suzukis, but Mackenzie's definitely the latest Grand Prix machinery.
Well, Mackenzie tried both the V4 and the Square 4 at Donington, and which did he prefer?
Well, the new V4 is only a prototype, and he's using the older machine, the old reed valve Square 4. That's number 2 Mackenzie on the bike we're talking about.
And that was the bike twitching and pushing around there. That wasn't handling too well then, Peter.
Well, it's a very, very bumpy section of the track, and the bike bumped around and moved, but it didn't actually get out of control. And we're switched back to the leader, Roger Burnett, on the 3-cylinder Honda. Obviously coping with the track surface irregularities very, very well, the Honda is.
Well, I think that Roger Burnett and Barry Simmons were perhaps the only men in the motorcycling world who didn't know that Neil Mackenzie was going to run in this particular race. It came as a real surprise and a bit of an unpleasant shock for Roger Burnett. and he was disappointed that they hadn't got the NS engine, and he was determined to beat Neil Mackenzie if he could. Burnett, the race leader.
Yes, that's Burnett, as I say, changing up now, third gear, fourth gear, 120 miles an hour coming out of this corner, goes fourth, fifth gear, then into sixth, back to fifth.
The leaders on their seventh lap, the penultimate lap then of this 1300cc Shell Oil Trophy race, and Roger Burnett is going to add another tremendous trophy, an excellent win to an already rapidly growing list of successes. He won the Classic TT in June in the Isle of Man. He's had some good rides in the Grand Prix. He's almost unbeatable on the British mainland.
Yes, he's only got a few 100 yards to go, tucked down behind the screen, keeping his head out of the wind to keep the top speed up before he brakes hard. Leaned over now, the front tyre. He's judging the braking and the cornering forces to make the best use of the front tyre's grip.
And the scrap for second place, getting fairly desperate, and Mackenzie has gone through. Neil Mackenzie has gone through to take second place. So Roger Burnett on their last lap, and Roger Marshall and Neil Mackenzie battling away for second place. There is Marshall, there is Mackenzie, there is Kenny Irons. That is the scrap for second, third and fourth position. Roger Burnett out on his own, that's the gap, and there is that three-way dodge behind. Burnett out on his own, and it's Marshall and Neil Mackenzie. Well, everyone anticipated this would be a two-horse race, and it's been anything but a two-horse race. It's been the Roger Burnett show with Roger Marshall, Kenny Irons and Neil Mackenzie as the supporting cast.
And that's Burnett out. Knee almost toe and knee scraping the road, and the suspension working overtime on the three-cylinder works Honda.
Burnett then on his final lap, the battle for second, third and fourth place behind. You just saw a glimpse of it. And Burnett, a comfortable leader. Surely nothing can go wrong.
Just careful not to make any mistakes at this last second.
Through the chicane for the final time, and there is this dice, and Mackenzie's got back in front. There is the checkered flag for Roger Burnett.
And that
so a fine victory then for Roger Burnett, but it was Neil Mackenzie who snatched second place on the line from Roger Marshall, with Kenny Irons in fourth place. But there is the man, Roger Burnett, a splendid victory, and the man who beat easily Neil Mackenzie today.
And didn't he just get his revenge for that defeat at Silverstone? Confirmation of that result then, Roger Burnett winning easily from Neil Mackenzie, as if to say, who is this chap? And Roger Marshall in third.
Parish, if I can start with you, it's a very special afternoon today.
Yeah, I've made my decision that this is my last season racing, and I'm going to put my efforts into running the Loctite Yamaha team next year. I've decided that with Kenny Irons running in the team and another rider next year, we've got a great chance of winning this series that we're doing, and I'm very excited about the prospects.
So you're not lost to motorcycling, but you won't be riding?
Absolutely not. I shall still be here causing troubles.
Keith Ewan over there at the end of the lineup. You've raced in all sorts of different formulae around the world. What's the appeal of this event?
I think it's because it's such close racing and it's at a budget that everybody can afford. I am a privateer backed by a building firm, SDC in Bedford, and without them, at a reasonable budget, you wouldn't be able to afford to go racing. 500 Grand Prix racing, which I've been involved in for some time, it's just got cost prohibitive. You cannot afford to go racing anymore. And besides, in England, this is the only race that people come to see nowadays. It's the best race of the day.
Well, nearest me, we've got Richard Scott. Richard, you obviously had a problem in a race fairly recently, judging by the look of the face.
Yeah, Alton Park last weekend. Guy crashed in front of me, over him I went, and hence 5 stitches to my lip. And
you're okay now? Yeah. I know the three of you are great friends and rivals. Who's going to win this afternoon?
I am, he is, and he is. There's going to be a three-way spread. Who knows? It's all such close racing. It could literally be a three-man win for everyone. It's so close at times.
We shall see.
Steve Parish hedging his bets there. They're already into the warm-up lap, so let's go straight over to the commentary box now for the Superstocks Challenge.
Yes, indeed. Superstocks introduced to Britain just 2 years ago, and they've been one of the successors of the British men and racing scene. This year, the Motorcycle News EBC series has produced some excellent racing. This cup race today, the Shell Oils Superstock Cup race, should provide us with some sensational action from the men who normally take part in these Superstock events. Well, Peter, who's your money on?
Well, I don't know, it's really tricky in it. There's so many good guys on the evenly lapped machines, and the three men we saw being talked to earlier, any one of them could do it. There's also other guys like Roger Marshall, Roger Burnett, Neil Robinson, Kenny Irons. It's very, very tricky. All these bikes very, very well prepared. They start off as showroom motorcycles, and then there's a lot of work to be done to them after that. Special forks, special brakes, special suspension units. Everyone's got their own ideas about what makes them the best motorcycle. We've got Suzuki's, Yamahas and Hondas all lined up on the front row. And on the front row of the grid there, number 5 to the right of your picture there, the local boy, Trevor Nation. Well, he's had success in Superstock racing over the past couple of years. He would like to win this race today. Next to him, number 16, Keith Ewan on the STC Suzuki. There is Keith Ewan. Well, Keith, who turned his back on Grand Prix racing to take up this form of 4-stroke production-based racing. The traffic light signals are on red. They've been given the signal here to change to green. Away they go. The charge off the grid, and Steve Parrish and Kenny Irons, the two Loctite Yamaha men, are out in front, and it's Kenny Irons who leads from Steve Parrish. Kenny Irons, the protege of Steve Parrish, leads, and Steve Parrish, Stavros, is there in second place to watch Kenny Irons in action. Irons on the Yamaha, Parrish on a Yamaha in second place. Then it's Neil Robinson, Scotty Robinson, on the Skull Bandit Suzuki in third place. Well, what a tremendous start from Kenny Irons. Absolutely lightning start. The 4-cylinder 4-stroke shot off the line there. Irons judging the clutch slip and the rear tyre traction to perfection to get a superb lead on the first lap.
And Kenny Irons' knee just skimming the tarmac, and Parrish is there just holding off the rest of the opposition. If he can give Kenny Irons a good start in it, and Scotty Robinson's gone through, and in fact Steve Parrish loses 2 places there. I didn't see who dived through into third place.
No, it's very difficult to see. Somebody came underneath him, a really tricky manoeuvre at that point in the circuit, but Irons look as though he's even getting away.
So coming round to complete their first of 8 laps, it's Kenny Irons out in front, and it's Neil Robinson who's been pushed back into third position. That's Phil Mellor there, who's stormed through to second spot, while Phil wasn't one of the men that we tipped to be up there, but Phil Mellor has gone through into second place, pushing Neil Robinson down into third position. Parrish in fourth spot, but Kenny Irons setting an absolutely scorching pace out in front.
And we remember seeing Irons doing great things on this machine at the match races on ITV Sport at the beginning of the season, when he did battle with the great American riders Schwantz and Merkel, and now he's showing what he can do just in front of the all-British riders behind him.
Mellor there in second place, and more changes lower down the leaderboard. Ken Irons tucked in as much as he can, no real fairing on this bike. Oh, and a nasty switch on the bumps of Thruxton there. That came close to throwing him off, Peter.
Yeah, it was a very, very nasty moment. Kenny had to take a real grip on the bars to fight that one. Of course, these Superstocks machines have quite wide bars that allows the rider quite a leverage advantage over the machine, and Irons needed all of that advantage to fight the Yamaha on that occasion.
Well, it's amazing, isn't it? We all thought that Roger Burnett perhaps would be the star of this 2-4 Sports promoted meeting, but it's not. It's Kenny Irons for me who's been the man of the meeting. Mellor, Robinson, then down in fourth place is John Lofthouse, and that's a good performance from John Lofthouse up there with the factory boys. Kenny Irons, though, charging through, and look at that pack behind. 8, 7, 8 then. Roger Marshall right at the back of them, failing to get to grips. Some of the factory Skull Bandit Suzuki's well down there. That looked like Chris Martin or Paul Lydon well back.
Yes, and Irons has got to watch it at this point because the speed he's going at, the bumps are really abusing the tyre and suspension unit. Now, if he overuses either one of them, the rear traction's going to be rapidly disappearing. It's only an 8-lap race, and that may save him, but it still could be a problem over the last couple of laps.
A real hectic scrap at the end of the second lap. It was this man, Kenny Irons, who leads in second place. Phil Mellor in third spot, Smutty Robinson, then John Lofthouse, Trevor Nation, Steve Parrish, Richard Scott and Roger Marshall. Kenny Irons out in front, and there is that battle behind, and it looks as though Lofthouse has lost a place and Roger Marshall looks as though he's lost a couple of positions. This is the battle for second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth places. And that is John Lofthouse, I think, number 34. Well, what a tremendous performance from Lofthouse. Oh, but Phil Mellor goes round the outside as if he's standing still. So it's Mellor back into second place. Lofthouse, Neil Robinson, Richard Scott, Trevor Nation, then Steve Parrish and Roger Marshall behind him. Keith Hewitt in that group. And all the time, Kenny Irons is galloping away in front. And Roger Burnett pulls out of the race. Roger Burnett, number 9, out of the race.
Yes, and a tremendous battle between these two 750 Suzukis, these similar oil-cooled machines.
3 laps gone, they're on their 4th lap, and John Lofthouse is battling away on this privately owned machine. Well, that's one of the advantages of Superstock racing. The factory men don't have it all their own way, and the lead now just under 2.5 seconds. Well, what a superb dice. And I know one man who'll be enjoying this one in his hospital bed at the moment, and that's Neil Tuxworth, injured at Aberdare Park. We wish Neil Tuxworth a speedy recovery. Bad luck, the school holidays are over, Neil, but you'll be back up and about soon.
And there's Irons there, bumping, battling and weaving at over 140, 150 miles an hour. And the battle for second place is getting even hotter, with Scott moving into third place on the white Honda.
And there's a man you know all about, Peter.
Yes, he's a Kiwi from Wanganui. Richard Scott moves into second place on the Honda.
Well, of course, it's Peter Clifford's sponsors. He even uses your van.
Yes.
So come on, own up to it.
Yes, I'm a bit biased as far as Scotty's concerned, because he's come a long way from New Zealand to race in England, and he's doing very, very well, chasing Kenny Irons, the leader.
And the ambulance there's been a bit of an incident on the far side. Difficult to see who's involved at the moment, but the officials are there, and we're watching now the scrap out in front as Richard Scott makes and consolidates second place his own. Richard Scott, then Phil Mellor, then John Lofthouse. In fact, John Lofthouse has gone back ahead of Phil Mellor. Up there as well is Smutty Robinson. Trevor Nation is battling away there. Steve Parrish.
And as we're back watching Kenny Irons, the leader, it looks as though Irons has lost a few yards to Scott. Maybe he has abused the tyres and suspension over the bumps. And Scott now closing in a little bit on Irons as the race runs towards its close.
Well, we saw Richard Scott's well-punched mouth a little earlier. Despite the pain, he's battling away here, Peter.
Yes, he has. He's put the unfortunate incidents of last weekend behind him, and I think Irons may have hit some sort of trouble, because Scott gaining on him very, very rapidly now. I wonder if Irons has had enough good pit signals to warn him that Scott is closing with every corner.
He's not just closing with every corner, he's closing with every yard, and Richard Scott looks as though he's going to win this one. And there is the battle behind. There is the scrap for the lead, and it's John Lofthouse ahead of Phil Mellor as they go through in third and fourth place. They've finished. They've done 5 laps now. They're on their 6th lap of this 8-lap battle, and what a superb dice we've had.
And it really is down to handling, I think. There's Irons' machine bumping and weaving all over the road, and Scott's machine does seem to be performing much, much better. That's down to Ron Grant, and who's done an awful lot of work on Scott's machine, and Ron Williams, the suspension expert in the Honda camp.
Yeah, Ron Grant, of course, is an Englishman who moved over to the United States to go racing for US Suzuki many years ago, and he's a very experienced character. Ron Williams, the man who used to build the Maxton frames and has been a key figure in Honda's racing plans, and they've done wonders for Richard Scott. And can Scott, look at that, those bikes, little lead. Kenny Irons on the wider line, Scotty looking for the inside line, and Richard Scott goes through to take the lead. But can Kenny Irons back on the inside again. He's on the tighter line, and Kenny will not give up. Kenny Irons is not the sort of man who eases off. They are side by side, and Kenny Irons will not give way. He's a hard little devil, and Kenny Irons hangs on there. Superb Richard Scott there, pushed back into second place. They're through the chicane. That is the end of the 6th lap. 2 more laps to go.
And as we saw those bikes side by side, it really looked as though there was no speed advantage to anyone. So it's down to riding. You can see Irons' machine twitching and weaving all over the road. He's really in trouble to try and keep the power on, but he's gritted his teeth, grabbed hold of those handlebars, and he'll battle with the bike all the way to the finish.
End of the 6th lap. It's Irons and Scott out in front, then Phil Mellor third, John Lofthouse behind him. Then Roger Hurst looks as though he's moved up in that group, and that's a good ride. Number 7, that's Neil Robinson, he's down in 5th place. Then Trevor Nation, Roger Marshall, Steve Barrett. And Lord Scott looking for the inside line again, but Kenny Irons is so brave, so hard, he will not give way at all. And if Richard Scott wants to win this one, he's going to have to win it the hard way, Peter.
Yes, he's going to just have to ride around Irons and leave him no room at the final corners. Make the best of the way the Honda is handling, and it certainly does seem to be working better than the Yamaha. He pulls alongside him, tucks into his slipstream this time.
And Irons just saying, well, I dare you, I'm going as hard as I can. If you want to go past me, you're going to have to really stick your neck out. They're coming through to start their 8th and final lap. Kenny Irons in front, a little bit slow out of the chicane. Is this the chance that Richard Scott was looking for? And these Superstocks machines will be in action in the EBC Championship at Donington at the end of this month, and if Scott and Irons can produce this form, what a race that could be.
Incredible stuff, and these are, don't forget, these are road bike-based machines. That's the FZ 750 Yamaha leading the VFR 750 Honda, the air-cooled 4 leading the water-cooled V4.
Kenny Irons leading Richard Scott. Well, I think Kenny Irons, but a lot of people might have picked as a potential winner, but I don't think anyone would have said Richard Scott.
And I think we might see Scotty go round the outside of Irons on the very, very fast run down to the last chicane. It'll be a test of nerves and a test of braking. Scotty's in front. He's got inside Irons. The superior handling of the Honda. Irons' bike shaking around all over the place as he tries to go round past Scott again. It's going to be desperate stuff, only a couple of corners to go.
And Scott holding off Kenny Irons. What a fine ride from Roger Hurst. While all this has been going on, Roger Hurst has battled through, and Roger Hurst is in 3rd place. Scott from Kenny Irons, and Kenny Irons pulls out of the slipstream, and Kenny Irons almost leading, and he's going to charge through. He's a brave boy, and Irons is back in front. He's on the limit, absolutely on the limit, into the chicane. He's just closed the door on Richard Scott, and Scott is going to wind on the Paris and sprint to the line, and Kenny Irons is going to do it by half a machine's length. It's Kenny Irons the winner. In 2nd place, Richard Scott. 3rd is Roger Hurst, and what a fine performance that was from Roger Hurst. I just checked with the lap scorers to see who was. No, it wasn't. It was Trevor Nation who came storming through. And in fact, we lost Roger Hurst on that final circuit. Well, we're going to have to check with the official lap scorers to see where Roger Hurst finished. But no doubt about the winner, it's this man, Kenny Irons from Luton, in 2nd place. A fine 2nd place from Richard Scott, the Kiwi. We're just checking with the lap scorer to see who was in 3rd position. And in 3rd place, Trevor Nation, the local boys. Kenny Irons, the winner. Richard Scott, 2nd. And Trevor Nation, the local boy, 3rd.
Not a bad race to go out on, was it? A thrilling victory there for Kenny Irons. Let's just have a look at the rest of the 1, 2, 3. Richard Scott in 2nd place and Trevor Nation 3rd. And in case you were wondering what happened to Roger Burnett after his thrilling win in the